Yo, 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 what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. Here with my NBA mock draft. The draft is finally here today as I'm recording, and you're probably watching this video, or maybe you're watching it back to see how wrong I was. That's also a good idea, too. It's been a ridiculous draft cycle. So many names are in trade rumors. Right now, at 2:50 Eastern Time is when I'm recording this mock, so there's a good chance by the time I post this, picks have been traded all over the place. But we will see. Hopefully that is not the case. I will start by saying for this mock draft, I am not a huge draft expert or anything. I've got a pretty good knowledge of like the top 30 or so guys, but beyond that, not too much. So I'm going to do my best here. It's going to be wrong. That's the nature of mock drafts, but we'll go ahead and get into it. I'll give you some insight to my picks when I make them as well. Please leave a like and subscribe. We did just hit 10,000 subscribers, which is amazing. Thank y'all so much. I want to do a special video for 10K. So what you want to see, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your ideas. Let's go ahead and start off with the number one overall pick in the draft, the Orlando Magic. And there's been a ton of questions about who's going to go here between Chet, Paolo, and Jabari as the top three guys. For me personally, I think it's, and according to Woj, who tweeted out basically the order this morning, it's going to be Jabari Smith. He's kind of been the guy that they've been looking at since the lottery, but he is the guy they're going with. An incredible offensive player, great 3-and-D potential as well. He's a guy that has real superstar potential. He's got to work in his handle a little bit, but I think he is worthy of a number one overall pick. At the second overall pick for the Oklahoma City Thunder, we're going to get the guy that I have been wanting this whole draft cycle in Chet Holmgren. Chet's awesome. He's a great defensive player. I think he has potential to be a future defensive player of the year. Great offensive potential as well. He can stretch the floor. He's great around the basket. Just exactly what this team needs, as well as, in my opinion, the best player in this draft class. So I'm stoked to get Chet at 2. And finally, at 3, Paolo Banchero going to the Houston Rockets. These three picks are kind of no-brainers to me. It feels like this is the way it's been trending for a while. It's what's going to end up happening. Paolo is a great piece for this team, adding to a front court alongside Alperen Şengün, Jalen Green in the backcourt. They're building a really fun young core there in Houston. So those are my top 3 picks, and those are kind of consensus. 4 is where it gets interesting. Of course, Jaden Ivey is kind of considered the 4th best guy in this draft. But there's the question of, does he want to play for the Kings, which it seems like he doesn't, and do they need him? Because they've got De'Aaron Fox. How is he going to fit alongside him? They took Davion Mitchell last year. However, I do think whether the Kings maybe trade down from this pick, which is a potential possibility, or they're here, I think Jaden Ivey goes. So I'm going to go with Jaden Ivey. I think that the Kings won't overthink this if they do end up in this spot. Jaden Ivey has real superstar potential. He's an incredible athlete. He really kind of just feels like he has that it factor to him. And you can figure out fit later. When you are at the 4th overall pick, you can't pick for fit. You've got to pick the best player available, and that's Jaden Ivey. The Pistons are a threat to maybe trade up to go for a guy like a Jaden Ivey. I could see that happening. But if they are here at 5, I think Keegan Murray does help them out a lot. They just traded Jeremy Grant yesterday, so Keegan Murray will slot in immediately at that small forward, power forward spot. He's going to give you great production out the gate. Good 3-and-D player, can play on both sides of the ball. And I think him adding his shooting next to Cade Cunningham alongside Saddiq Bey as well, I think they're building a really fun young core there in Detroit, as well as maybe bringing in a restricted free agent or two and maybe a DeAndre Ayton or a Miles Bridges that they're rumored to be wanting to pursue. So something like that. We will see. Next up, with the 6th overall pick for the Indiana Pacers, I'm going to go Bennedict Mathurin. I think he fits here well. They could definitely go like a Shaedon Sharpe or a Dyson Daniels, but for me, Mathurin, I think, makes a ton of sense. He's one of my favorite prospects in this class. He gets buckets, and he's going to do a great job of producing next to Tyrese Halliburton, forming one of the most fun young duos in that Eastern Conference. Next up at 7 for the Portland Trailblazers. This is a pick that could definitely be on the move. They're trying to win now, but I think whether the Blazers are here or someone else's, I think Shaedon Sharpe makes sense. He's kind of the mystery man in this draft. Of course, he went to Kentucky. He enrolled there but never played a game. So here he is heading into the draft with really only high school like AAU footage to really look at, as well as of course like workouts for teams. But Shaedon Sharpe is all up and down the draft board. Some people think he could go as high as 5, as low as 9 or 10, maybe even 11 or 12 if he really falls. He's all over the place, but he has like superstar potential in my opinion. So I don't think Portland passes him up here. Or I could see if the OKC Thunder are an example of a team that could trade up for him there at pick 7. At pick 8 for the Pelicans, I'm going to go Dyson Daniels. There's this team needs thing over there on the right, which I just covered now by making the pick. They need a point guard severely. They really need someone to play that position. They've got CJ right now who can kind of run that, but I think Dyson Daniels, bringing in a guy who can play make, defend, hit some shots. He really improved his 3-point shooting at the end of the year. Put him next to McCollum in the backcourt. I think they'd be a great pairing. He plays well off of Brandon Ingram and Zion as well. Throw them some lobs, whether he's off the bench or starting. I think Dyson Daniels, he's been rising for a reason, and I think he would be a great pick here at 8 for the Pelicans. At number 9 for the San Antonio Spurs, I am going to go Jalen Duren. He's a guy that to me feels like he would fit the Spurs pretty well. I think that I'm higher on him than a lot of people. I see him as being a potential like Bam Adebayo type player. I think he could be really good. Kind of an underrated playmaking aspect to his game. A good rebounder, hyper athletic, can catch some lobs from DeJounte. He just adds another dynamic to a team that just needs more talent. They've got a lot of solid wing players, so they're going to add a big here in Jalen Duren. At the 10th overall pick for the Washington Wizards, I'm going to go with AJ Griffin, one of the best shooters in this draft, probably the best shooter in this draft. Some concerns about his injury history. I believe it was a knee injury that he missed out on some time at Duke, but towards the end of the season, he looked fine. He's a guy that I think will play really well next to Bradley Beal if he does come back, as well as Porzingis. He can just stretch the floor really, which is kind of what they need. And for a guy that's been sliding a little bit, I think getting him at 10 is great value. For 11, the Knicks are kind of tough because there's a couple different ways I think they could go here. But for them, I am going to go with Johnny Davis. I think that they end up dealing Evan Fournier and like Alec Burks to shed some salary at some point, whether it's during this draft or after the draft. But I think Johnny Davis makes a lot of sense to fill in kind of that role. He's going to get you some buckets. He's a good mid-range shooter. He's got to work on the three-point game a little bit, but he's also got some solid defensive potential, which they need. And he could be fun next to RJ as a 2 and 3 wing combo. So I'm going to go with Johnny Davis. To me, I feel like he just have some big moments in the Garden. At 12, for the Oklahoma City Thunder, back on the board, there's a couple different names, Ousmane Dieng, Malachi Branham, Jeremy Sochan. I'm going to go with Malachi Branham here. He's someone that I'm really high on. To me, he's got shades of Devin Booker in him a little bit. Maybe I'm overestimating him a little bit. I'm not saying he's going to be Booker, but I think he's got kind of that similar game to him. I'd be excited to see the way that he plays on pretty much whatever team he ends up on. But if he was out in the Thunder at the 12th overall pick, I would be ecstatic. With the 13th overall pick, we do have the Charlotte Hornets. And here I'm going to go Ochai Agbaji. He's a guy that he's just going to be a really solid player right away. Senior out of Kansas. Great 3-and-D player. Gives the Hornets a little bit of what they need, which is defense, but also someone who can stretch the floor next to LaMelo Ball. I think he's going to be an immediate impact player for a team that could maybe lose a Miles Bridges in restricted free agency, or if they deal a guy like Gordon Hayward, he can step up and take some of those minutes. At the 14th overall pick for the Cavaliers, this is a tough one because I think they're going to end up trading this pick, but they have to pick someone first, I believe. I'm going to go Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara. Solid guard who kind of gives them a little bit of what they need. They need, I think, a little bit of scoring in the backcourt. Of course, they do have Sexton and Garland. To me, I wouldn't be surprised if Sexton isn't back this upcoming season if they don't want to pay him. So I think bringing in a guy like Jalen Williams does make sense, especially when they've got kind of a Levert already. I could see Sexton being gone. Jalen Williams will give them some solid minutes there at the guard spot. Or if they end up taking him and trading that pick, whoever ends up getting him, I think would be pretty happy. With the 15th overall pick, we have the Charlotte Hornets backup, and this one to me feels like a no-brainer. I think it's Mark Williams out of Duke. He feels like he's destined to be a Charlotte Hornet. They desperately need a center, someone who can protect the rim and just kind of battle down low. They haven't had that in years. Mark Williams is going to do that for you. He'll catch lobs from LaMelo and have a really fun time doing it, I'm sure. So Mark Williams is my pick there. At my 16th overall pick for Atlanta, I'm going to go with Jeremy Sochan here. He's a guy that brings a lot of defense. His offense is a bit of a work in progress, but they don't really need that. They don't really need great offensive players. They've got Trae Young. They've got Bogdan Bogdanovic, Kevin Huerter, Gallinari, DeAndre Hunter. Like, they need some defensive guys, I think, in that squad. Jeremy Sochan has one of the best defensive upsides in the class. He's probably the best perimeter defender in the class at the moment. He's going to immediately come in and help revolutionize that defense. So I'm going to go with him here. At the 17th pick for the Houston Rockets, this is where I'm going to go with Ousmane Dieng, adding him once again to a front court of Paolo Banchero and Alperen Şengün. He's going to play the small forward or power forward. He's 6'10", 205, so a little probably more of a small forward. But I think Dieng is a guy who, while he is kind of a project, the Rockets can afford to kind of take their time with him. He's a guy that I think will... He'll take a little bit of work to become the player that he could be, but the Rockets, they don't need him to produce automatically. They've got like Jayshawn Tate, who can play the three already, so Ousmane Dieng can kind of learn behind him, develop, grow, and eventually maybe step into that small forward spot one day. With the 18th overall pick for the Chicago Bulls, we're going to go with Tari Eason out of LSU, sophomore, 6'8", average around 17 points per game. He just brings a little bit of tenacity to the Bulls. He's dynamic, he's versatile, he's a guy that will come in and kind of continue to have that identity that the Bulls have of some kind of hard-nosed defensive players. I think he gives them a great bench piece as well that they desperately need. They need some production off the bench, and I think Tari Eason can be an immediate impact player for a team that's trying to compete sooner than later. With the 19th overall pick to the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm going to go Ty Washington from Kentucky. There's rumors that they might be trading D'Angelo Russell, and if they do, they're going to need more guard play. Even if they don't, they need more guard play. So picking up a point guard here in Ty makes sense. He doesn't have to do a ton right away. He can handle the ball a little bit, but you've got Anthony Edwards, you've got Cat, you've got guys that can handle the ball for you. If they hold on to D'Lo, you've got him as well. So Ty doesn't have to do anything immediately, but I do think he can be impactful from the get-go. At the 20th overall pick to the Spurs, this is where it gets kind of tricky for the Spurs. They drafted Jalen Duren. I'm going to go with Dalen Terry here, I think, out of Arizona. He's been rising draft boards a little bit. 6'7". He's kind of a multi-positional guy. He needs a little bit of work on his offensive game. He's still kind of raw, but the Spurs aren't a team that's trying to compete immediately. So I think he makes sense. He's a guy who can play in that backcourt alongside DeJounte Murray sometimes if they need, or he can kind of just learn and grow alongside like a Josh Primo who's young. So I'm going to go with Dalen Terry there. At the 21st overall pick for the Denver Nuggets, we're going to go with EJ Liddell here for them. A guy who, once again, they're a team that's trying to win now. He's going to make an immediate impact, be a physical presence in that front court alongside Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jovic. He also gives them an option if a guy like a Michael Porter Jr. goes down for a little bit. He's been dealing with a lot of injury issues. He can step up and play big minutes for them if they need him to do so. I like this fit a lot. This is one of my favorite fits in the draft. So EJ Liddell to the Denver Nuggets. At 22 to the Memphis Grizzlies. He's a guy that I know a lot. I'm sure a lot of the fans of teams right below this are hoping he'll drop there. My brother, who's a Sixers fan, I know he's hoping he falls to 23, but I think he's going to go here, and that's Jaden Hardy out of the G League Ignite. He's earlier in the draft process before the season started. He was a guy that was looked at as a potential like top 5, 6, 7-ish pick. He ended up falling because he played pretty poorly, but I think in a more like well-rounded system around some really good players in Memphis, I think he would have a lot of success. He's not going to be asked to do too much right away. He's just going to go ahead, get them some buckets off the bench. They've got a pretty crowded front court. They really need some backup shooting guard, point guard play, and Jaden Hardy can give them some of those minutes. At the 23rd overall pick, I'm going to go with Nikola Jovic out of Mega Mozart. 6'10", great shooter, gives the Sixers a guy that can give them some points off the bench. One of their biggest issues in this past playoffs was they couldn't get any production off their bench, and so a guy like Jovic, I think, will come in right away. He will really feed off of Embiid, get a ton of open looks. I think he would be huge for them, so I'm going to go with Jovic there. Next, for the Milwaukee Bucks, this is a fit that I like a lot. I've seen him mocked here a lot. We're going to go with Christian Braun out of Kansas. He's just a kind of a win-now player. He's not someone who has a super high ceiling or anything. I think he's going to be a really good role player for a while, and that's exactly what the Bucks need. They just need more good role players. He's going to be cheap at a 24th overall pick contract, so it gives you a nice option for the long term. He's really got that dog in him, as I'm sure a lot of people have been heard. People like what people say about him. He's just one of those guys that's kind of hard-nosed. He's going to get on the floor and die for a loose ball or something like that. It's kind of the player that you expect to get here for a contender at the 24th overall pick. Next, at the 25th overall pick for the San Antonio Spurs, I have here, I'm going to go Jake LaRavia here. Power forward out of Wake Forest, a guy who can kind of just come in and get some buckets. They've kind of been struggling to figure out who's in that power forward spot for a little bit, and LaRavia, even if he's not a long-term answer, I think he's a solid depth piece for that position, so I'm going to go with him here. For the Houston Rockets, who have another pick in this first round, I'm going to go with, of course, from the Christian Wood trade. For them, I'm going to go with Marjan Beauchamp, I think, giving them another wing player who... he's a little more raw. He's a guy who's going to need to, he's going to take some time, I think, to get really to where he wants to be, but he's hyper athletic. He could be really fun next to Jalen Green, and I think this is a solid position for him to go. A lot of people think he could go a little bit earlier, so it's good value for the pick as well. For the Heat, I'm going to go with Kennedy Chandler. They need point guard play. Kyle Lowry has missed some time here and there, so he gives them more depth at this position, and he's someone that I think would fit pretty well in this Heat system. For the Golden State Warriors at 28, I'm going to go with Jaylin Williams out of Arkansas, a center. That's really what they need, is a big man, someone who can grab them some boards in case maybe like they lose Kevon Looney to free agency, or in case James Wiseman gets hurt, because he's dealt with some injuries over the first couple years of his career. Jalen Williams gives them some insurance there. I think he would fit really nicely next to Curry, Clay, and the rest of the guys. Memphis, once again, back up on the clock. And for them, I'm going to go with Blake Wesley. Give them another guy who can kind of play that wing position off the bench. They've got a lot of really solid guys in the front court. Adding some wing depth here, I think, is pretty important in the backcourt. So I'm going to go with Blake Wesley. And finally, with the 30th overall pick in this mock, I'm going to go with Wendell Moore to the Denver Nuggets. Another guy who can just give you some good minutes in kind of insurance injury position in case like Michael Porter Jr. misses time, in case like an Aaron Gordon misses time. He's also just a solid all-around player, so I think he fits pretty well here for a team that's trying to contend this season. So those are my 30 picks in the first round. I'll kind of scroll through it quickly if you want to take a look and kind of stop at any point to look at the mock draft. Like I said, I'm not a draft expert or anything, but I've kind of thought about this for a little bit, and this is what I'm going with. But yeah, that's my mock draft. I appreciate you watching. Let me know what prospect is your favorite in this draft and who you want your team to draft in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of the mock. I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.